Hot Tubbers, welcome to the podcast Tub Talk with the Hot Tub Lady, recorded live here on this channel. We are super excited to have you here today, and we have a very, very special guest. Her name is Kayla, and she is a water care specialist, and we are super excited to bring her on today. So let's welcome Kayla, and let's get this going. So, hey, Kayla, how are you?
Hey, Hot Tubbers.
Whoa, hang on. We got to turn that down. Whoops. Okay. Kayla, can you hear me? Hang on, I can't hear you. Interesting. We had it all going.
Oh, there we are.
There we are. Okay, so that's on you this time, not me.
You know, yep. This theater kid, I smart enough to shut off my mic and not smart enough to turn it back on. So,
well, perfect. Well, welcome. I'm super excited you're here. We finally got you on screen. We've been trying to do this for a while now, and we finally got you here. And just so everybody knows, Kayla is my daughter-in-law, and she's been around for a while and kind of done a lot of stuff with the hot tub. She manages her own chemical store that she manages, and she does really, really well. And I guess you just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you are and how you got here and all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I'm located here in South Dakota. Like Jacque said, I'm her daughter-in-law. So basically, I liked her son enough that I decided to follow him. Moved here, got involved in a family hot tub business, and I liked it enough that I wanted to stick around. Being from small town Nebraska originally, I liked the family feel of not only the company but just the industry itself. All of the reps that I've met, from the hot tub reps to the chemical reps to the parts reps, and kind of everything in between. I've always liked the feel of it, so it's always been very welcoming.
Well, you've fit in very well, and you've done a really good job, and you've educated yourself, and you've embraced everything, and you did the service department for a while, so you've been on that backside, so you understand the importance of really good water care and why it's such a big deal, and what we have to do to actually make sure that the hot tubs are taken care of. I mean, just give me an example of what you've seen or have had to deal with because of poor water chemistry.
Sure. Yeah. So for poor water chemistry, along with hot tubs, I also deal with pools, but it's the same equivalent. If that baseline, if you're not balancing your alkalinity and pH, I've seen pool heaters just getting eaten up from the acid water from someone not taking care of it. And obviously that's not your pH runs low on one day. It's the not taking care of your water consistently, and it just it's more cost friendly to maintain than it is to recover. So
for sure, preventative is so much better than proactive, and that's especially on the pool side. You'll definitely notice that more, but on the hot tub side, it's a huge deal. If you just get in your routine, do your routine, you know things are going to go really well. And so Kayla works with saltwater hot tubs as well. So you guys be sure to ask any questions that you may have about saltwater hot tubs or regular hot tubs or anything along that lines. But we're definitely here to help you guys out today. And, I've learned I'm in the process of writing a book, as you know, and I've learned some really cool stuff in the last couple of weeks just doing research for that. And one of the things that I just found out was, I think I knew it, but I think it was just filed so far back, that how important that pH is as far as taking care of your hot tub. Did you realize that a hot tub that is 7.6, the sanitizer, which would be your chlorine, is twice as effective as a hot tub at 8.1? That it will cost you double the amount of money with a hot tub with an 8.1 pH than it will with a hot tub with a 7.6 pH. It takes double the amount of chlorine to do the same thing.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree that that's one of those little nuggets that's always filed away where you know its importance, but when you break down the numbers and everything, you kind of forget how important and how crazy it is. Just a 0.4 difference can double your wallet size.
Right. And it didn't hit me until I like put it in that perspective when I was like, oh, this really affects things.
Right.
And, you know,
Yep.
again, on the swimming pool side, you know, you're talking quarter cup,
You're
half
you're
cup. On the pool, there's hundreds of
there's
dollars of
yep,
difference.
yep, pounds and pounds, just not teaspoons. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a big deal. But anyway, I thought that was a very cool way to get started. So, well, let's just start with our questions today because we went through a couple. These are the things that we see every day. Kayla runs a water lab. I run a water lab. We see these are questions that we get every single day as when people are coming in. But one of the questions that we get is, why is my hot tub cloudy?
Yeah, so a cloudy hot tub could come from a number of reasons, but excuse me, usually the number one reason for a cloudy hot tub is typically it's a low sanitizer. So you always want to make sure that you're adding enough sanitizer at minimum on a weekly basis. You want to be shocking your hot tub for those chlorine and bromine systems. For your saltwater system of the hot spring and calderas, you want to be using the boost function in your salt menu there. That's going to act as your shocking, because what that does is that helps oxidize all of the bacteria, lotions, oils, detergents, everything that's locked up in there to help clear up the water for you. Another reason that could be cloudy is it's just time to clean that filter out. You want to make sure you're doing that frequently, at least once a month. If the filter's not cleaning, it's not going to be cleaning the water for you. So those are usually kind of the top two reasons of why it could be cloudy. It's like taking your car in, it's making a sound. It could be one of four things that's making that sound, until we can kind of, usually I like to tell people, if you bring me a sample, I can for sure tell you why it's cloudy, but usually a low sanitizer and dirty filter, a few different reasons it could be cloudy for you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna go with the filter being dirty first because most people will call and be like, I just cleaned it, or I just bought a new one, or I'm like, well, when's just? And they'll be
Right.
like, well, I just did it. You can look it up in your
Yeah.
records. And we do, and we look it up in the records, and just was 6 months ago.
Yep.
Because it's one of those things that you definitely need to clean that filter once a month. And I highly recommend somehow either marking it on the calendar if you're a calendar person. I'm not. I can't keep myself straight as it is. So to add a calendar on top of things, I can't do that. But to do things, I just put a reminder on my I'm a Apple girl, so I just say, "Hey Siri, remind me to change my," or I tell people, "Hey, the first Sunday of every month," or whatever the easiest way is for you to do it. But clean that filter, clean that filter, clean that filter, clean that filter. I know you guys have heard me say that a bazillion times on this channel, but I run into it every single day. Every single day, somebody's like, "Well, I just did it." Well, you need to do it again. And if you're not doing it with enough pressure, like you really got to get a garden hose and you got to do some serious pressure. If you're not doing that pressure and you're just rinsing it out in the kitchen sink or in the bathtub, you're just not doing any good. You're just moving it around. You're not cleaning it. So, and it's a really good idea to use a degreaser. I actually like the Pleatco filter tabs quite a bit. Are you a fan of those, or are you more of you like the degreaser better? Or...
What I kind of tell customers is it's all about user preference. With some of the liquid degreasers, it is a detergent, so you are going to have to do a bit more rinsing because it is sudsy. The filter tabs, the Pleatco filter tabs, they actually changed the formula, so it's no longer a full tab, and they've actually broken it down into the powder form, just because the tabs sometimes took too long to dissolve and didn't fully get dissolved, so you'd have to kind of break them up anyway. So they were able to give it in the powder form, but the same concentration of using the two filter cleanings per one packet.
I did not know that. So, so are they? Tell me more. Is it a little package then?
Yep. It's the same little orange package guy. It's just the tab broken down into the powder form, and you still get the same 2 filter cleans for one packet. And so I would definitely say that the Pleatco packet powder is probably definitely more my preference, because now it's broken down from that tab. Just because I didn't have the patience for the tab, so my mentality, I always just took the extra 2 seconds to rinse the liquid, then the 2 seconds to break down the tab. So.
Interesting. I was not aware of that. Do we have those in stock? Okay, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try
You can,
those.
yeah, you can definitely check that out. Yeah, if they've, I think it's been kind of hit and miss from our Pleatco vendor. We got one shipment in of the powder, and then I think our shipment a couple 2 months ago, we got some more tabs in. So I think depending on who your vendor is and what they have in stock is going to kind of depend on what you get when you get.
Well, see, I'm constantly learning from you. You're always a
Yeah.
little bit ahead of me. So, Kyle's here. He just says hello, and he is all about Team Pleatco. So, he likes the Pleatco cleaner, and I'm a big fan. I haven't done the package yet, but I've definitely done the powder or the tablets, and I love them. But yeah, and interesting. And I
Yeah, no,
do.
we have.
Go ahead.
I was going to say we have plenty of customers, that were excited for the tab because, it was kind of like an Alka-Seltzer a little bit. And just the change from breaking down the tablet to the powder, we've had plenty of customers that are so excited that they did that just for, the reason that I described, that sometimes the tab didn't always break down all the way. But yeah.
So awesome. So okay, so back to the cloudy question. One of the things that you mentioned was it's usually a sanitizer problem, and I would 100% agree with you. And I'll get a lot of people that'll come in and they'll want to buy a water clarifier to solve that problem. And I love water clarifiers. I highly recommend them. I think they're a great product, but I am going to say they are a band-aid. They are not a solution. So you
Right.
definitely need to fix the problem, the cloudy problem, with your sanitizer. So, what's your advice on that? If somebody comes in, they got a cloudy hot tub, it's their sanitizer. What would you tell them to do?
Sure. Whenever I kind of get that situation, I always tell people, where's your sanitizer at? If they tell me their sanitizer's good, on our chlorine test strips, not the at ease ones, if that's at ease ones, it's, that dark green. Our regular chlorine test strips is dark purple. They're like, oh, my chlorine's a purple. It's just not clearing up. Sometimes, I like to fib to my doctor and my mechanic. So sometimes people don't always quite tell because they see the label that says, the band-aid that says clarifier, this will fix it and everything. And, so I just make sure to reassure and tell them, it could be your sanitizer. You can use this clarifier, but please don't overdose it because this might not actually be the wrong thing. Because a lot of times what people think that a clarifier will fix when you actually overdose on clarifier dosages is it'll cloud the water up even more for you.
Exactly, because what it does is it actually it polarizes the molecule, and so it makes that molecule stick together. And if you put too much of it, it's just like a magnet. It'll actually reverse that polarity, and I'm hitting all kinds of stuff, but you'll reverse that polarity, and then it actually makes those particles harder to catch in the filter. So the whole purpose of a water clarifier is to make it a filter aid. So that's what that does and why that works. So that's a big deal. So cool. So do you think we covered everything there? Did I miss anything that you wanted to throw in on that?
I don't, well, so maybe one kind of cool tidbit. It's one of those things that was again filed away when we had one of our chemical reps in town, probably month and a half ago. We were talking about different water clarifiers and everything and how they take the molecules and make them bigger so the filters can get caught in them. Like you said, sometimes those particles get too big. And, the different filtration systems of every hot tub, if you have a bigger tub, it has more filtration because it has more water. So some of those clarifiers, even, depending on which brand you get, can actually make those particles bigger so they get caught through the filter because the filters can only take such small microns to get caught in them. It made more sense with pools because that's more what we were talking about, but
right, but
with the hot tubs too, it catches those particles.
It all crosses over. I mean, it 100% crosses over, and it is definitely pool season, and we definitely have pool on the brain. And I've been in my pool quite a bit this weekend, and you can kind of see my tan line here. It kind of hurts, but yeah, pool on the brain. It was 100 degrees here yesterday, so. We don't get that in South Dakota very often.
No, and when we do, we stay inside. That's what we did yesterday.
With the wind, we were out in the pool, but not for very long yesterday. The Sunday before, we were in there quite a bit longer. But so, Okay, why is the water brown? That's a good question that we get a lot. Well, I mean, there's nothing grosser than when somebody calls and they're like, I got brown water. I don't know what happened. It's something. I mean, they imagine the absolute worst when they see brown water, and you and I know what it is, but I'll let you go with that.
Right. We all know a little bit of brown water is just simply a scene from Caddyshack. So, um,
Not,
but
not quite, but
no, not quite, not quite. I figured I had the opportunity, I'd throw that in there.
that's awesome.
But yeah, typically brown water most likely is going to be metals present in the water for you. So we want to make sure that we get those filtered out with some sort of pre-filter when you're filling it from the water source. We can have extra disposable filters that you can just attach to the hose. Sometimes people have pre-filters from their, well water, house water sources, things like that, just to make sure. What happens then is usually those metals in the water, once we add our sanitizers, they oxidize and they start turning the water different colors for you.
For sure. And they'll turn brown, they'll turn Kool-Aid green, I've seen
turn
purple.
red and
red, all those
purple's
things.
a weird one. Yeah.
Purple's manganese. So that was a Nebraska thing. That's not something we so much see in South Dakota, but it's,
Right.
But there are ways to handle that. If you are, again, like Kayla said, the pre-filters, most of those do a really good job. If you are on a salt system, you'll want to use something called a see you later. I give mine away. But a see you later, it's a little cage thing, and you put that in the filter. And the reason you want to use that is it doesn't leave phosphates. And otherwise, if you're not on a salt system, you 100% need to use stain and scale control. In my opinion, one of the absolute best products that's out there. It works phenomenally well on metal, and it just does a really good job. You do 3 ounces on a 300-gallon hot tub once a week, and it just keeps everything under control. The problem with it is it does have a lot of phosphates in it. And when you have a lot of phosphates in it, that's actually, that battles with the salt system a little bit. So you kind of have that issue. And that's why we say do the see you later over the stain and scale. But if you're not on salt, do stain and scale every single time. It is a fantastic product. It does a really, really good job. I like to go back to the car analogy and say it's kind of like oil for the car. It's that important for the hot tub. You really, if you have metal or scale forming of any sort, you definitely want to use your stain and scale control. So that's a big deal there. So did I miss anything? Anything else you want to?
No, just to kind of piggyback off of, the stain and scale, not only for metals, it's really good for kind of calcium hardness. We have some of our customers that get so many calcium flakes, and it just builds up in the lines, builds up in your heater, so your heater is not going to work effectively. That impeller on your pump isn't going to be turning. So your water's not going to be heating, your tub's not going to be running. And, right now here in the Midwest, we're fine. But once that heater goes out in the middle of December, it's not too fun for that
it's a
hot
bad
tub.
deal. So I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that we get quite a bit, and actually I just had a viewer email me or reach out to me on Instagram this week, and their hot tub feels like sandpaper. And they're like, what do I do? How do I fix that? And they're like, I'm scrubbing like crazy on it and I can't get it to come off. And this is a little hack that I got years ago. When I had my dealership in Nebraska, the water there was literally liquid limestone coming out of the hot tub. It was so bad.
The worst.
It was
Nebraska's
so
some
bad.
of the worst water.
It was, and but we would do, back in Nebraska, we would do what we call a stain and scale purge. So we all have purges, but a stain and scale purge, what that is when your hot tub gets so bad that it feels like sandpaper, or you can like physically see the calcium buildup on the shell of the hot tub. If it's that bad that it's on the shell of the hot tub, it is really bad inside the internals of the hot tub, because that's where it builds up first. Scale loves heaters, so it'll actually attach to heaters and do its thing. But what I would do with the stain and scale purge is you get the water balanced. It is important to get the water balanced, just like I was talking before with the chlorine. working twice as good when the pH is in line. The same thing is true with this. But you get the water balance. You're going to put in your oldest, nastiest filter you have because you're going to ruin it. It is going to be done when you're done with this. But you pour the whole quart, and it does take a whole quart. You're going to run it through the hot tub, and you're going to run that for about 24 to 48 hours, pulling the filter out. Try to run the jets as much as you can. Pull the filter out as often as you can, every couple hours if possible, and you're going to rinse all that as much as you can. What we're trying to do is we're trying to physically remove that calcium out of the hot tub, and this is the only way you're going to do it. And so you'll work on that. You're going to drain the hot tub. You cannot use the hot tub at all anytime during this time frame. And you don't want it to sit longer than 48 hours because it does become very acidic. You are then going to drain the hot tub. You're going to throw away the filter. You're going to rinse it out really good. And at that point, if you wanted to do a regular purge, you definitely could. This is a lot of work to do this, but your hot tub is going to be like brand new when you're done, and it's going to be way less work than trying to scrub that scale off of the shell. I mean, that's been a huge little hack that I've had that not everybody knows about, but it does work really well. Have you had anybody try that yet, or?
I've done that on some of like our used hot tubs that we get in. Some of our customers have that hard scale buildup water who weren't necessarily doing those purges. So when we get them in, we'll do purges like that. But I have recommended that to customers before. I've also recommended while we're throwing out different varieties of purges. Sometimes just bacteria and black mold build up in customers' tubs. I've actually also had them do like a straight chlorine purge. So, pull the pillows off. So those don't get all scummy, and throw 2 pounds of chlorine in there. And like you said, just let it go, let it run as often as you can, and just clean those lines out and kill everything that's in there.
Mm-hmm. And that's, again, anytime you put anything that you're calling a purge into the hot tub, you are never going to use it until you drain that hot tub. And it's not a situation where you can do this and leave it alone for 2 weeks. You got 48 hours max. So if you do any purge of any type, you really, I'd say, like a regular spa purge, something like this here, 30 to 40 minutes will take care of that. But if you're doing something like a super chlorination purge or a stain and scale purge, that probably needs at least 24 hours to actually do what it needs to do. But those are some hacks that we've done over the years that have turned a really nasty hot tub, or a hot tub that you thought was done completely wasted, into a brand new hot tub again. And they are expensive, so be preventative, because that stuff is all expensive to do. So it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of chemical. And that's just one of those things that you don't necessarily want to do, but it is something that you can do. So, and then to prevent like that scale from happening in the future, go back to putting your 3 ounces of that stain and scale in once a week. You'll never have that problem again. The black mold situation, keep your hot tub sanitized and clean, and that'll solve that problem. And we do recommend doing just a regular purge just to clean out the ick in the hot tub. This is one of my favorite. Hopefully they get the packaging situation figured out on that. But spa purge from Natural Chemistry is a really good one as well. So there's some good stuff out there. So my chat is being pretty quiet, you guys. Any questions anybody's got, be sure to throw them out there. Why is the hot tub water foamy?
Whew. This one's probably one of my funnest and favorite, because, like we were talking about with the water clarifier earlier, kind of being a Band-Aid, everyone comes in and asks for a defoamer and, an anti-foam kind of product for the hot tub. And that's one of the biggest Band-Aids for a hot tub. It's a great product. It does exactly what it says it does, but it's only going to temporarily get rid of the foam and bubbles for you. So it is really that Band-Aid for you. If your tub,
a problematic Band-Aid, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
So
because people, I added anti-foam. And well, why did we need to add anti-foam? And so usually why we feel like we need to add anti-foam when we're getting, kind of the foamy water, depending on the situations, when we're looking at just regular chlorine or bromine hot tubs, whether on the frog system or just the regular concentrate, it could be usually all of that foaming is caused from lotions, detergents, oils, makeups, things like that that are getting into the water that aren't being sanitized out, aren't being filtered out. So you always want to check, cleaning your filter, making sure your water is sanitized. And sometimes that doesn't just do the job enough for you because there's so much in there and
Mm-hmm.
that the sanitizer and the filtering isn't working. So one of my favorite products that I like to use, that I know you've talked about, that I'm a biggest fan of this, is Natural Chemistry's Spa Perfect. So what that is that's a natural enzyme that helps break down all of those inorganics, the lotions, detergents, oils, and things like that, and helps the sanitizer filter those out so your sanitizer can work more properly and not be foaming for you. Um, if we're looking at the saltwater side of things, usually when your tub's foaming, like we were talking before, it's usually a phosphates issue. So phosphates is, the best way I explain it is just a fancy word for extra contaminants that can't be broken down. It, comes from the chemicals we add to the water. Sometimes rainwater gets in there. If your neighbors are spraying and fertilizing, those will add phosphates. So then what we need to do, that can cause your salt cell to not work, your sanitizer to not hold. So that's why it's foaming for you, because things aren't working properly. So then when you're on the saltwater system, then you use a phosphate remover and water clarifier to kind of help get rid of those things.
Um, so yeah, I agree with that completely. And on the saltwater side, we do sometimes notice at the beginning of a brand new fill that hot tubs will actually because of all the extra contaminants that are in the lines from the manufacturing process, sometimes the phosphates will actually have a good buildup there. And then you got to remember, on a saltwater hot tub, you're dealing with softer water. So just like in your shower at home, when you have soft water at home, the soap works better in a soft water situation. So now you have soft water with the hot tub, and you've got the contaminants from the manufacturing process, and all of that kind of adds together and builds up and becomes a bigger issue. So doing the whole phosphate thing is a bigger deal. And also on the saltwater side, on the foaming, and this is what I've noticed the most, is a lot of people don't get a good enough base at the very beginning of a saltwater system to actually take care of that problem. Right. And one of the situations that happens is, and I tell people to put in 2 tablespoons of chlorine every day for the first 3 days, and I've had really good luck with that. But what happens is that salt system only generates a teaspoon and a half of chlorine in a 24-hour period. And when it does that, it is just not getting to where it needs to get to. So you got to get that chlorine. Again, we're down to a low sanitizer, but then you're adding the phosphates in there. And, on the saltwater hot tubs, you're 100% adding, shampoos, detergents from the swimsuits, lotions, all that stuff. There's so much more going on inside of that soft water, and it's reacting more. So that's a big deal. And one of the tricks that I've been doing lately, on saltwater or non-saltwater hot tub, but if you're getting a lot of foam in your hot tub, you got to physically get that out of the hot tub. Knocking it down with anti-foam is a big deal. It does help. It's kind of fun. I actually kind of enjoy doing it. I will tell you, that little pint bottle of anti-foam that you buy in the store is a year's supply for sure. That you shouldn't be using more than a pint of that in a year. But it is kind of fun to knock that foam down with an anti-foam. But you taking either a shop vac or a leaf blower and physically blowing that snow or blowing that foam off of the hot tub definitely helps with that quite a bit. So those are things, but you got to physically get it out there, because if you just knock it back down, you're just setting it up to build up again. So that's one of the things that goes on here. So, all right, we got a few comments here. Frank's got, a guy up north asked me if you can clean a hot tub with antifreeze.
I've never heard of that being done before. I don't know if that would be the best way to do it, just because antifreeze is kind of more to coat everything back up rather than push everything back out. So my my short time of experience of 7 years is going to say no to
Yeah,
that.
I'm gonna
I don't.
I'm gonna agree with you on that. So antifreeze is so we use RV antifreeze in the hot tubs when we winterize them sometimes. So it's not gonna hurt the hot tub.
Yeah,
It
and
really
it
has no
sanitizes right out
cleaning.
when you fill up, and
Yeah, but it is biodegradable, and so it does dissolve. We actually do ask that if somebody has a winterized hot tub, is either fill it up and drain it back down just to help clean it out, or if you do just fill up a winterized hot tub with antifreeze in it, we're actually going to tell you to super chlorinate that at the very beginning of the season, just to get that all knocked down and gone from there. So Tahiti Sweetie. Fun name. I like that, Tahiti
yeah.
Sweetie. I just purchased my hot tub. It's 1 week old, bromine level low, and I put an entire pint bottle in since we set it up, and it has a floater. I bought 2 different brands of test strips. So Tahiti Sweetie, first of all, you put a pint of what in? So that would definitely help us out there. I'm assuming you're talking bromine, and you say you're on a floater, so you're probably definitely working with some organics from the manufacturing process. I guess if you could help me out a little bit and tell me how much bromine or chlorine or whatever you're putting in when you say I put a pint of something in, and how often you're doing that, and what we're doing. But if you're on a bromine floater, we have to get that bromine activated, and it is going to take some bromine concentrate with that. So that's kind of a big deal that we help get that bromine set up. You can do it. What you can prime your bromine with chlorine. It definitely will turn into bromine, but that is something that you can do. But that's where we are. And then she did comment again. Tahiti Sweetie said, I did just buy the eye care system. Congratulations. You're absolutely going to love that. So I hope that helps. Our original instructions said we need to add 4 to 6 ounces of bromine per life of the water. 4 to 6 ounces of bromine per liter of water. So yeah, I wouldn't disagree that 4 to 6 ounces of water isn't, or 4 to 6 ounces of bromine is probably 100% what you would need. But what you got for me there, Kayla? What is your take on this at the moment?
Well, one, I'd like to know what kind of floater maybe you're using Tahiti, or if you're using like a bromine tab floater that you're adding tabs to it, if you're using like a spa frog bromine floater. And then also, because your tub is brand new, a week old, if you guys are using it during that time, any bromine that you've already added is going to be eaten up before you even have the chance to create that residual. So I would maybe try, I know it's not fun because it's an exciting purchase, but maybe try not using the tub for a couple days, adding that bromine in to create that residual. That way you can have it and aren't having to add in the bromine, excuse me, as frequently, so you can get that going.
So I don't disagree with that. Frank says thanks, and Tahiti says Brom Bank. I think that's bromine thanks. Yeah, again, I think we just need to get my suggestion would be is I would add, if you've got a negative bromine residual started already in your test strips, I mean, if you're using bromine test strips should work, because there's no such thing as total and free on bromine. But I'm gonna guess that you've got just a massive backlog from the manufacturing processes that's just consuming all your chlorine. And I would probably do 2 ounces of bromine, and then I would actually test it literally like 3 to 5 minutes later. And if you're not at a solid 10 part per million, I would repeat that process until you can get up to a 10 part per million 3 to 5 minutes after adding that bromine. And I would just do maybe 1 to 2 ounces at a time until you get there. And then I would take the cover off and let it run for a good 24 or 20 minutes or so, with the jets on, so that I can so that we can definitely get you taken care of there. So, and Tahiti, while we're at it, I forgot to give you confetti, so we're definitely going to do that. We haven't done that in a while. So there is your confetti and your horn. And I lost Kayla in that, but we'll bring her back. And then,
confetti.
So, confetti. Congratulations on the new hot tub. A hot tub is an awesome thing to have, and welcome, welcome, welcome. So, all right. And then we have Monica Peters. I have my first hot tub, so let's give her some confetti and horn. And I've had my first hot tub for about a month. The eye care seems like I've known what I was doing all along. Thank you. Monica, that's awesome. I love the eye care. I do absolutely think it is 100% amazing. And I'm a huge proponent of the eye care. And I'm actually testing another brand that somebody sent me right now. And it's cool. I like it. But the eye care has it beat. It does have it beat. So... And
I'm just gonna have to hit the lottery because the eye care is gonna put me out of a job. I'm not gonna have to test people's water anymore.
It's it does that good a job. It really does. And
yes.
I love it when my customers, when they get a hot tub and they get one, because like we got to get things dialed in the first week or two. But once I get them dialed in, I pretty rarely see them after that. So yeah. That's definitely awesome. And okay, I had to see where we were on time. We're doing just fine.
For sure.
Tahiti Sweetie says thank you. So I hope we answered your question for you, Tahiti. Where were we at there? Kayla, what question were we on?
Probably about the fourth one. We're kind of dabbling a little bit in the bromine and chlorine.
Yeah. So this should cause some well, let's get to the right guy. We got all kinds of questions. You guys seeing everything that's going on here? Let's cover that. Let's do this. What is better, chlorine or bromine?
Well, to take the philosophical approach, any sanitizer that's going to work is going to be good for you. But my personal preference is going to be chlorine over the bromine, just because it's a more effective sanitizer. It's going to fix things a little bit quicker and just more efficiently and effectively. You know, there are some people out there, you know, some of our customers that just don't like the smell of chlorine. We have a couple of them that have super allergies against chlorine, so they get to use bromine. You know, and once you've got bromine, you know, it's like anything. Once you kind of get it figured out and locked in, you know, it's great, because I have some customers that switched to bromine because they couldn't figure out chlorine, and some customers switched to chlorine because they couldn't figure out bromine. And so overall, I'm going to say, please just sanitize your hot tub no matter what it is. But overall, I'd go with chlorine over bromine as a more effective sanitizer in general.
I'm a chlorine girl. I do like chlorine. I've done bromine in the past. When Hot Springs went bromine, I jumped on board, and I was the good little girl and did everything I was supposed to do. But I'm a chlorine girl. I do prefer chlorine. Now, bromine has its place. If you're a super consistent user, you have a 3-person family and 3 people are going to use the hot tub 3 times a week, and it's going to be for 30 minutes every single time. Bromine's the way to go. It works really well,
and bromine works phenomenally, you know, in the warmer hot tub water temperature. You know, bromine does beat chlorine out on that as well. It's going to hold a little bit better in the warm water.
It does. And the big reason for that is when bromine becomes a combined molecule, which is a bromamine, it's still sanitizing. And that is not the case with chlorine. When chlorine becomes a chloramine, it is no longer sanitizing. Right. However, it's easier to break apart a chloramine than it is to break apart a bromamine. So the bromine, the water stays clearer longer. But my issue with chlorine or with bromine is it's a super acidic product, and it will drive that pH and alkalinity down. And just like when we were talking earlier, that, you know, having that water balance and how much more chemical it takes if your water is not balanced. If that bromine constantly drives that down, and it's really hard on you, and it's really hard on the hot tub, because a lot of people will get a false sense of security because the water will be crystal clear, and it will be crystal clear. And that would, you know, that's the title of our show today, is how do I get crystal clear water? If you put bromine in it, you're going to have crystal clear water, but you do want to have, you want to be able to enjoy the water. You want it so you just know if you're on a bromine system, you definitely need to pay a lot more attention to your pH and alkalinity. You are going to be driving those up quite a bit more. So, but your
Right.
water will stay clear. But
For sure. Yeah. And, it's kind of the similar idea of the chlorine versus bromine, talking with the alkalinity and pH. A lot of times, why people think they have a chlorine allergy or that it's irritating to them is actually not the chlorine, and it's kind of more the pH and alkalinity that are out of balance. That's more of the acid water causing the red eyes, the itchy skin. But people just assume that it's the sanitizer because they can smell chlorine when it's actually not that, and you need to shock and balance your pH and alkalinity out.
right. And if that's the probably the biggest tip that either one of us can give you, if you can smell chlorine or you can smell bromine, something's wrong. You shouldn't be smelling it. I mean, you
Right.
really, really shouldn't be smelling it. So
Yep.
that's kind of a big deal for it to, if you're smelling it, you need to shock it. When you walk into a hotel and you can smell that chlorine and you're like, oh, the swimming pool must be in great shape. Nah, it's,
Yeah, no, my aunt and cousin were in town a few months ago, and we went to their hotel to go swimming with them, and I was there for probably 20 minutes, and I was like, my eyes watering. They need to do some stuff. I'm gonna hop out of the water.
right, because that's now with that being said, I was in my hot tub this morning and I was trying to do a couple reels because that's what I do in the mornings in the hot tub, and my eyes were burning, so I got to fix something today. So
Yeah.
it's
No, I unfortunately have to tell customers it's definitely a do as I say, not as I do to my own hot tub,
right,
because we
right,
can we can we can fix it a little quicker.
for sure. So okay, Monica, you are very welcome. And then let's go to what is the difference between chlorine and salt?
So the difference with chlorine and salt is that with a chlorine system, you're adding straight chlorine to it, and that's what's being used as a sanitizer. With salt, what it does is it takes the salt, the sodium chloride, and it breaks it apart to the sodium and then the chloride to the chlorine to keep cleaning for you. And then through the regeneration process, it comes back to the sodium chloride, breaks apart to be the chlorine to clean for you. So you're not having to physically add chlorine. It is still a quote unquote chlorine system because it uses chlorine to clean, but you're not having to physically add chlorine to the water. And because the salt recycles itself with the sodium and the chloride, you never have to add more salt to the water unless
Never,
you
never add more salt.
you have a big old party and you lose 6 inches of water. Then top off that water, check your salt first, and then decide if you need to add more salt from there. But the salt stays in the water, so it just recycles the sodium and the chloride, and just a traditional chlorine you've got to add every now and again to top off that sanitizer.
Right. And again, probably the biggest thing that I have, because it is chlorine. Salt is, I mean, it sanitizes and works exactly like chlorine. And the biggest thing that I probably can tell people is never add salt. Never add salt. Do not add salt. You don't need to add salt to
No,
your hot tub ever.
salt. That is also something. Yeah, whenever customers are like, "Well, I added salt because I had low sanitizer." Well, yes, sanitizer. The salt is your sanitizer, but the salt is not your sanitizer. So we gotta
The
that
byproduct of the
difference.
split molecule is your sanitizer, not the actual salt.
Yes.
So if you put too much salt in your hot tub or your swimming pool, you are definitely 100% just adding to the problem, or you're not taking the balance out of the water. And really the only way to fix that is to do a drain, and that's nobody wants to do that.
No, especially on
So
a pool. Yeah.
but then the other thing, and this is true with either swimming pools or hot tubs, the amount of sanitizer that those actually produce is really not enough. I mean, it's
No.
in a hot tub, it's a teaspoon and a half in a 24-hour period. Most of the time for one or two people, that's fantastic. But if you have a party or you get behind in any way, shape, or form, that teaspoon and a half isn't enough to force that forward. So
Right.
it's a big deal to to help that out when it needs help. So, and that's what I love about it, because I've done a lot of sanitizers over the year. I've done biguanides, I've done all that stuff. And when they got away from you, you couldn't fix them. But on a salt system, you can fix that. You just have to add more chlorine. And for the most part, if you get on a good routine and it's doing what it needs to do, you usually do pretty well. But just kind of keep that in mind. So.
Yep. Yeah. And, with the salt system, with the Watkins, the Caldera, and the hot springs only producing, a teaspoon and a half every day, if you are a daily user, have a big old party, it's always good to go into that salt menu and just hit that boost button, hit it before you go and have your party, hit it after you have a party. What that'll do is that'll crank up that salt, the chlorine production up. And then that way, when you hit it before your party, you're not getting behind. And when you hit it after, you're replenishing what you lost.
So that's fantastic. And I guess, what's your take on shocking the hot tub, shocking a saltwater hot tub?
Well, with the manufacturer, words are hard some days. Tip of the tongue of the teeth. Shocking the hot tub is going to be that boost function in the, Caldera and hot spring lines.
Mm-hmm.
I personally don't have a salt hot tub myself, so it would all kind of depend on where the other levels were and everything. But, if you shocked it once a month or something, if you had a super big party and you needed to add just a little bit more, I would, probably recommend that to someone.
Right. And shocking your saltwater hot tub should be a last resort. You should definitely use your boost button before you shock it. I highly recommend, if you know there's a lot of people coming over 24 hours ahead of time, boost it, and then when they're all done, I would boost it again. Your salt cell will last longer if you boost it versus shocking. Now, there are times that you still need to shock. There are times when it's far enough away from you that you do need to actually do a shock as well. And that's okay. I mean, that means you're using your hot tub, and that's a great thing. And we want people using their hot tubs. And I don't want anybody to not we can't have a party because we're going to mess up the water chemistry. No, we can fix the water chemistry. That's the beauty of it. It's just sometimes it takes a little bit of work, and just know that sometimes it takes more than you think it's going to take. I've had situations where I've had to go help people out, and I'm like, well, I need to put in 3 tablespoons 3 days in a row, and they're like, that much? And I'm like, yeah, but it fixes the problem, and it's, once you do it, you're fine. And if you get behind and you get negative, you've got to help catch that up. And that's people don't understand. They just don't understand that even if you were hand feeding it and not using your salt system, a teaspoon and a half just isn't enough sometimes. So
yeah. No, exactly.
So yeah, that's kind of what we got going on there. And then what are we? That's going to roll in. How often do I add chlorine? That's going to roll right into that. That was.
Look at this.
You think I planned that or something?
I know. It's just all the help of the comments being able to transition us into that perfectly. So how often you want to add chlorine? If you're on a saltwater system, you want to add it, like you said before, those kind of first 4 days, 2-3 tablespoons to create that residual. Now, if you're using the hot tub during those first 4 days, it might take longer and more dosages past that, just because you're using it. So you're taking away what you've added. And then after that, you shouldn't ever have to, or unless, like we were talking, it's, you get behind and there's nothing else. So a little bit of chlorine, a little bit of shock. If you're using a traditional chlorine hot tub, you'll want to usually at least add chlorine once a week. I like to add chlorine and shock my hot tub. Obviously, you want to wait, 15, 20 minutes in between shocking and adding any other chemicals, just because when you add shock at the same time as other things, it just counteracts everything and doesn't function. But, if you're to go back to our car analogies, with an oil change, they recommend you change it every 3 months or 3,000 miles. Well, my 3,000 miles is different for your 3,000 miles commuting 200 miles a day. So you need an oil change every 2 weeks, where sometimes I can get to my 3 months and not even hit, my 3,000 miles yet. So if you're, using your hot tub couple, 2, 3 times a week, and it's just you and a spouse or you and a kid, you could definitely get by with just adding that chlorine once a week. If you're using it 4 or 5 times a week, a daily user, and you've got you and the spouse and a kid or two in there, it might be something that you have to add, twice, maybe 3 times a week. So it all kind of varies. We can give you a baseline of what to do at the minimum once a week, and then just kind of varying your hot tub usage is where you kind of adjust from there, and whether you need to add more or stick with that once a week.
Yeah, I agree. That's really good advice. I typically tell people on regular chlorine, if you're using chlorine concentrate, that you probably have to add it a minimum of 3 times every 3 days or so. And then I would probably say if you're, add a teaspoon or two every time after you use it. That seems to be a really good advice that works really well for people. Knowing that if you go over a week without using it, you're going to have to add chlorine or during that time frame. So a minimum of once a week if you're
Yep.
using it or not, and then
Right.
probably a teaspoon or two every time after you use it. So that would be my advice on that. And then if you're on the spa frog, which I think, in my personal opinion, if you're not on salt, that's the system you should be on. Is the Addie's system. It's a low chlorine system. It works fantastic. It's really a once a month program. I mean, it really is. It's on normal usage. If you're a real heavy use, you might have to do a little more maintenance than that. And again, the big trick on that is preventative maintenance versus reactive maintenance, and reminding yourself to change that cartridge and do the things that you need to do. If you do that, you're gonna get along super great with that Addie's system. So that's
For sure.
um, we already asked that one. Will chlorine clean up my cloudy hot tub?
So we kind of talked about that a little bit at the beginning. Kind of just depends on what's all going on with the cloudy hot tub. It might be that your filter's dirty. So then obviously that's not going to be a chlorine issue. That's just a dirty filter issue. But if it's a low sanitizer issue that's causing your cloudy water, then absolutely chlorine's going to help kind of clean that up and take care of that and kill the bacteria that's in there. So again, like we talked about earlier in the hour, it all kind of just depends on what's going on with the water and causing that cloudy for you.
I'd agree with that. And the other thing that can cause a cloudy tub that we didn't really talk on is your filtration cycle. So if you
Yes.
don't have a hot tub that is 24-hour circulation pump, you do need to set your filter cycle. And some of the hot tubs that are out there have a default of 30-minute filtration cycle in a 24-hour period, and that is not enough. That is not going to get your hot tub clean. You can put all the chlorine you want in the world in it, but if your filtration cycle isn't set to run long enough, you're not going to get that. The water just doesn't run through the filters, and then you can't get it clean. So I mean, what do you recommend for your filtration cycle on how long that you should set that?
Yeah. So usually with the hot tubs that I'm familiar with, like kind of the caldera and the hot spring, I believe those go on a 1 hour to 6 hour. So
Mm-hmm.
usually at least kind of a 3 hour is kind of that good middle ground to start, and then kind of figuring out your usage if you need it to be filtering a bit more, because chemicals are only 1/3 of what's going to make your hot tub go. It's the chemicals, filtration, and circulation. And I know Meatloaf said 2 out of 3 ain't bad, but you have to have all three to get going, um, just to make sure everything's clicking for you.
You are just on fire today. I am super impressed. That was another good
Yes,
one.
yes. I'm
I
not I'm
was
not as young as I look.
so the I would agree. I tell everyone a minimum of 3 hours. That's the absolute minimum you're going to run your filter cycle, and you're going to get along. It's going to cost you way less in chemicals if you do that, and it's just the way to go. So
Yep.
um, so that's really going to kind of wrap us up. It's been an hour already, believe it or not. So you have anything else you'd like to add, or?
Um, I think I'll wrap it off kind of with the car analogies. That's usually the best way I can get people to kind of understand maintaining their hot tubs. So another question that I frequently get, with keeping the hot tubs clean, is, well, what if I'm not using it? Um, well, one, that's really sad to hear, because I want you to use your hot tub because it's amazing and it's great. But even when your car's just sitting there, your engine oil is still getting old, your engine oil is getting bad. So you still need to get it, the 3 months or the 3,000 miles. So even if you're still not using it, your hot tub, that water is still sitting there, still sitting stagnant. So you still want to check on it, at least once a week, just to make sure everything's going good, with either the chemicals, or if for some reason your tub's not heating and you need to get something checked out. That's especially important during winter months here in the winter months here in the Midwest. So I guess that's another kind of random tip to keeping, just the water clean. Tub maintenance is, even though you're not using it, please check on it at least once a week.
And yeah, and for sure in the winter, I can't, you have to check your hot tub every 7 days. If you live here in the Midwest, you have to check your hot tub every 7 days. I do recommend everybody should check their hot tub every 7 days. That should just be a rule of thumb anyway, but you should check your hot tub every 7 days. But that's good analogies. You are on fire with the analogies today.
That's, it's, you do this and you try to figure out ways to, how can I make this relate to people? How can I get them to understand it? And, we all drive cars. We all, we may not know how to take care of the car, but we know what needs done to take care of the car. And, that's why we have the mechanics. That's why the water experts are here, just to, so it was the easiest way. Car analogies are what I could get to kind of help people understand, this is why it's important to do what I'm asking you to do for your hot tub.
So, and that's totally awesome. And you were a wealth of knowledge today, and I'm super, super glad that this worked out. And
I am as well.
So, I mean, because we've tried this a couple of times.
Yeah.
It's mostly it's my fault. So, but we definitely got her taken care of today. But anyway, guys, we are going to, hey, if you got any value out of this, you can definitely come visit me on Buy Me a Coffee. We can help you out there. If you have any questions, by all means, you can definitely reach out to me on Instagram. I answer any and all questions on Instagram, or you can leave a message down below. I do try to get to all my messages on YouTube. I do get to Instagram a little bit more often, but definitely check it out. And don't forget to subscribe and do all the things that help you become a happy hot tub owner. And Kayla, thank you so very much. You were awesome. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, and my pleasure.
We will talk to you soon, everyone. Bye.